In Diablo lore, Necromancers are members of the Priests of Rathma, who use dark magic, not only to revive the dead and summon spirits, but probably to keep their own clan members alive far beyond their natural life expectancy. Like, this guy might actually be dead. But don't let this old man's age fool you. He is quick and completely capable of kicking serious ass in the dueling arena. How can this ancient arcane master contend with some of the most savage player killers on Battle.net? Let's dive in and check it out. The Necromancer is a master of the dark arts. When tasked with the challenge of vanquishing other players, he can summon the spirits of the dead through bone magic, unleashing vicious attacks that are impossible for opponents to resist or absorb in any meaningful way. These attacks can hone in on an opponent or simply cut through multiple targets at once. This version of the build, commonly called the Bonemancer, has a reputation for being one of the top tier duelers on the battlefield in Diablo II. Even if you're not great at playing this build at first, by the very least you will be rewarded with one of the most dramatic and oddly satisfying death sounds in all of Diablo II. Fun time all around. Whether you're pinching pennies or living large in this game, there's truly a build for any budget with the Bonemancer. It's a build that really favors playstyle, matchup, and skill with the character over necessarily gathering the most GG items. Let me show you what I mean. This version of our Bonemancer is something that I threw together with more reasonable gear. The version that I'll show you in a moment, the helm, amulet, and armor are a bit more expensive and less obtainable, but this version doesn't really use anything that's completely unreasonable. In fact, you could probably buy this entire thing for like 10 bucks on your favorite D2 items website, if that's your thing. But there's two main breakpoints that we hit with this, the 120% faster cast rate and the 86% faster hit recovery. Additionally, to test out the power of this build, I did not set this up with multiple stash setups. He's just simply a full Vita Necro that meets all the breakpoints that we need. You can see that he does a pretty reasonable amount of Bone Spear and Bone Spirit damage, and for all intents and purposes, this character is just fine to take into a public duel game with people that have some pretty elite shit. Here we are in a good-mannered duel against an Amazon, again, with no max block, and still having a pretty good duel. Here we are forcing a bad-mannered modder to chicken out of the game with this budget Necro, which is absolutely embarrassing for him, if I'm being honest. But hey pal, you picked that pub game. He didn't know it was me. I'm gonna swap over to my other version of this Necro now so we can check out the skill trees. You can see that we completely ignore the left side of the Poison and Bone skills tab in favor of the middle and right. These are where all of the bone skills exist, hence the name Bonemancer. We rely heavily on Bone Spirit and Bone Spear, so not only do we max those out, but we max out all of the synergies. You might have also seen that we use Teeth to have a massive area effect in the arena, but also to wipe out a lot of pets that players teleport around with. While Bone Armor is an amazing skill for absorbing a lot of physical damage, it's ill-advised to put more than 1 point into this because you might notice here, we actually get more of a bonus from the synergies of this skill. The synergies to Bone Armor are also synergies to our damage spells. So this is a super efficient way to skill out your character in this skill tab. Then we put 1 point into Clay Golem. Not only is this thing an amazing meat shield, but it has an incredible slowing effect on your opponent. As you go up in levels, you'll have more points to put into this skill tree as well. I would suggest putting 1 point into Fire Golem because it's actually immune to all fire attacks. It's very, very good if you're going up against a Fire Sorc or any other fire-based character in PvP. And here's something a little rogue that I do, but I also like to put 1 point into Golem Mastery and Summon Resist. This actually just makes your Clay Golem a lot more durable. This is basically so you don't have to recast it every time that it gets hit in the Blood War. And then as far as the Curses tab, I like to put 1 point into Amplify Damage. While it doesn't affect the magic damage that your Necro does inherently, if you're ever in team duels or anything like that, this is amazing if you have a physical damage dealing character that's on your team. literally doubles all the damage that they do. So this Necro can not only be pretty vicious in and of himself, but he can also play the support role if he needs to. And while the budget version of this build can certainly get the job done in PvP, certain items can push this character to the brink. But no matter the gear, our #1 priority is to always maintain those two very important breakpoints that we talked about: 125% faster cast rate and 86% faster hit recovery, even with our max block setup, which we'll get to in a moment. For my elite version of this, I use a 220 2-open socket helm here. I would highly suggest using one of these as they become available to you. Not only do they help you easily hit that 125% faster cast rate breakpoint, but they also allow you some different setups in the stash. I use Enigma of Duress on this character for the faster hit recovery. If you don't have access to Enigma of Duress, that's perfectly fine. There's actually an argument that regular Enigma is actually better here. However, if that's the case, you'll just want to put a Shale Rune into your helm instead of one of the jewels that I'm using here. This 220 amulet that I have is pretty insane for not only a strength boost, but for max block. Although this does help us get to that 125% faster cast rate breakpoint, you actually only need 15% cast on this item to get there. And of course, we want to aim for as many peanut butter and jelly grand charms in the inventory with as much life on them as possible. The other charms can be life and resistances with some added faster hit recovery if needed. The stat point allocation for this build is entirely dependent on your playstyle. Some players swear by going full Vita, which means you only put enough points into strength to wear your gear and the rest go into vitality. As with most of my builds, I swear by a max block setup where I put enough points into dexterity to reach 75% block with a certain setup in the stash. I prefer doing it that way because your matchup versus Barbs and Amazons go from good to bad if you don't, but that is largely dependent on your skill level, not only with this character, but on your opponent's skill level as well. And speaking of block, let's dive into the stash and check out the items that I'm using for that. First of all, we use Storm Shield instead of Spirit. Not only does it have a higher % chance to block, but it also has a nice damage reduction bonus on it. I have a helm that is specifically meant for max block in this setup, giving a huge boost to dexterity. The faster hit recovery is super important, especially whereas we're giving up Spirit, which gives you a 55% bonus for that. And in fact, maintaining that 86% faster hit recovery breakpoint is tough for people to do, but I found that Shadow Dancer Myrmidon Greaves are insane for this. Not only do they give you a huge boost to dexterity, but a 30% boost to faster hit recovery. Making all of these changes reduces our faster cast rate to 120%, so we have to swap out one of our rings for a 10% faster cast rate ring. This one also has a bonus to life and dexterity on it, additionally helping us get to that max block threshold. I do maintain my Enigma of Duress here, but if you did need to go regular Enigma, you can just have a Poison and Bone Skills Grand Charm in your stash as well that you swap out, which will give you an additional bonus to faster hit recovery, along with another small charm in the inventory. Also for us, it's possible to hit the 152% FHR breakpoint with this setup. The reason we would do that is if we're going up against an assassin that's going to use Mind Blast, where we not only need to weapon swap, but it just helps to have fast hit recovery. We have a Spirit Crystal Sword in the stash that can really give us that added boost to get us to 152%. I think the Bonemancer is a tier 1 PvP build that can get the job done whether you're a D2 baller or whether you're on a budget. A Druid will likely be your toughest matchup, but as you get better with the build, you'll likely be able to go 50-50 with this matchup by using Teeth to clean up the summons or Bone Spear to cut through them. Due to the casting speed of sorceresses, they can also be a tough matchup, but as you get better, you'll learn that you can outrange them with IBS, which stands for Invisible Bone Spirit, not Irritable Bowel Syndrome. Although that might also be an effective strategy if you're playing in the same room as your opponent. With that being said, I'll leave you with a fun team duel that we did on stream where this Necro really carried his weight. Not only could he play the support role with the physical damage dealing characters on his team, but when his entire team died, well, he did an alright job of clearing up the opposing team on his own. Hope you got some value out of this Bonemancer build guide. I'll catch you in the next video. Wow, just got TJ. Cannot believe that just happened. GG. We got them all. If I make a build video about this guy, that clip is going in.